Well, something that I learned, after years of traveling in and living in off-grid in our Class C motorhome, which we've recently sold, is that, there's just no such thing as having too much solar power or having too much lithium battery capacity, because those are things that you're just going to use and rely on 24 hours a day. So when I started designing the off-grid electrical system for this motorhome, it's a 2003 Winnebago Class A Adventure. I wanted to maximize the amount of solar that I could install and the amount of lithium battery capacity that I could stuff in here somehow, and also add a state-of-the-art inverter and communication and monitoring system. What I wanted to do in this video is give you a walkthrough of the battery and inverter and monitoring setup and how we use it on a day-to-day basis, because we've done extensive travel this year, and throughout that, 7 months of travel or so that we did this year, I've probably only plugged in to shore power of any kind, maybe once or maybe twice. Pretty much off-grid the entire time. We're actually at our home right now in Washington, and when it's parked here, even though I have 50 amp service, it's not plugged in because I don't need it. I want to walk you through this whole system, show you how we use it, what it's like to power everything, what can we power and for how long, and show you some of the tweaks and add-ons that we've installed, and answer some questions you might have. There's a couple of tweaks that you might have to do to the generator power setup to get this to work properly with the Multiplus II. So let's dive right in, show you what's going on in this compartment, and then we'll just walk through the rest of the system, show you how everything's connected, and it's going to be fun. Let's get started. I chose to install the batteries and the inverter and all that big heavy stuff in this compartment here for a couple reasons. First of all, it's got enough space. It's got enough room in here to fit everything. I chose the Battleborn GC3s because I could stack them and put them in a configuration that would allow them to fit in this space. This compartment also has a nice steel shelf around here that I could rest things on, and it would support the weight of all this equipment. And the other reason was because it's just centrally located between the front and rear axle, so it's just a great place to provide the support that I needed for the weight of these components. You might be thinking, hey, it's a Class A, you got all this storage. The main bulk of the storage that I have on the compartments are actually part of the slide out in the living room, so I didn't want to load up all that stuff with all this extra weight that's always going to be moving in and out. So this was a perfect spot, and I started kind of designing everything to fit in here. Now behind this wall here on this side of the compartment, I've got three 270 amp hour Battleborn GC3 lithium batteries. Now these have kind of a unique form factor. They're not like your traditional looking rectangular car battery looking type of battery. So I was able to stack them sideways here and maximize the space. They actually go all the way up here. They're pretty heavy, so they're like 80 pounds a piece, so together it's about 240 pounds for all three of them. But because of the way that they're shaped and the custom really unique feet that they have with them, I was able to create a bracket and physically join all of them together to make one big physical battery. Overall, I think it's 810 amp hours. And I wanted to just kind of hide everything here, and I created this kind of false wall so that the inverter and the batteries are all kind of hidden behind this wall here, and you're not just looking at batteries and cables and all that stuff. I just don't like that look. I wanted a nice clean look for this compartment. I could still put things up front here, store things. I keep an air compressor over here. You can see over here I have a air hose and all that stuff for airing up my tires. I'm not going to remove this right now because in order to do that I would have to turn off the entire system, because I have this this battery cutoff switch right here that's actually connected through this panel, so I don't want to have to take everything apart. Now, to support the weight of the batteries, I also created this kind of a hanger system using some unistrut and these giant threaded bolts that I can adjust. Now it goes all the way up into the top here and through the floor above here, and there's a metal sheet and there's just a whole floor there. So it's supported above, and they're essentially hanging from this compartment. So I don't have the weight of all this battery stuff on the bottom of this compartment here. The batteries themselves, actually, the feet sit inside this unistrut, and you know, it's pretty secure, and the back part of the batteries is actually anchored to this back shelf here with this giant metal bracket. So the front support bracket is this piece of unistrut that goes all the way along the front of the batteries, and the batteries actually sit in this channel quite nicely. Now I've put an anchor bolt here, and you'll notice that it's not completely tight. So I have a little bit of movement there, and you can see that the batteries themselves are not actually sitting on the bottom of this compartment here. I wouldn't be able to move them like this if they were. I just wanted to put this this carriage bolt right through here, just kind of bolt it down, just to keep it, see, it's loose, just to keep it from moving too much, you know, as the RV moves around. This whole hanger system is something that, you know, I thought about for a while, and I eventually came up with, you know, this plan, and it surprisingly has held up very well, especially, you know, as we've gone through some real sketchy road conditions through Canada and up all the way through Alaska. You know, I check it, you know, every once in a while, just expecting it to shift a little bit, you know, as we go through some of these real sketchy conditions. And it's pretty much stayed in place, so pretty happy with it so far. On the other side of this compartment, on the front of this false wall here, I have the Cerbo GX mounted right here on the front, so I can get to the connections and change things around as needed. Now this is the main communications hub for, you know, all the components, so I'll walk through that shortly. But also the main cutoff system for the battery bank is right here, so I can turn this off, and it basically disconnects battery power completely from the system. I created this little false wall here that comes off, and I got some netting here. I store some cables and stuff like that. But behind here is the Multiplus II. I can also reach behind here and get to, you know, a lot of the connections to the inverter and the battery. If I have to do anything significant, I need to remove this whole wall, and that gives me more access. The Multiplus II is actually mounted to this side wall here. There's a nice steel shelf that I anchored it to, and I created a just a custom metal bracket that was just kind of cut and sized so that it would mount to the Multiplus, and I can actually hang it from this little shelf. Again, it's not sitting on the bottom of this compartment. You know, it's pretty heavy as well. It's like, I don't know, 40 pounds, and it too has not budged ever since I installed it. Now, one thing I'll point out is that behind the Multiplus, there's a little gap about that much, because there's a shelf under there, provides a little bit of a gap, and I installed a big fan. So I drilled a hole through the wall about that far, and it goes underneath the step and outside underneath the RV to the outside. What I can do is just pull air through this compartment and keep the temperature under control. On the top of the Multiplus is just this little temperature controlled switch, and that's controlling the fan, and I have it programmed. It's in Celsius, since it's just this cheap thing from Amazon, but it automatically kicks on, you know, when the temperature gets to about 80 degrees or 85 degrees or so, and then just starts pulling air through this compartment when it's closed up. If you remember from the battery install, I connected all of the three GC3 batteries with bus bar. I think it's like 1 inch by 1/8 inch copper bus bar. So, you know, I'll periodically just kind of peek in here and check the connections there to make sure everything's okay. You can see all of the battery connections, and there's a big a fuse, a T fuse, a 400 amp fuse connected to the just the output of the battery power heading to the inverter. 4-aught cable going to the inverter from the batteries, and of course we have all of our AC stuff. So our shore power generator, split phase wiring goes into the inverter, and then we've got the 2 lines of split phase going out of the inverter to our main AC distribution panel, which is actually located just behind here. Everything's been fine, and quite honestly, since I installed this whole setup, I don't even really go back here and do much anymore. It just is kind of a set it and forget it. A lot of cables and wires and stuff, so nobody needs to look at that. So this whole front wall is actually making it look a lot nicer. Now, an issue that I had while running the generator is that I wasn't able to get the full rated output from my generator. This is a Onan 5500. I should be able to pull about 46 amps at 120 volts AC from this generator. But what would happen is that it would blow a breaker when I exceeded 30 amps. It's got 2 30 amp outputs. Each one will give you a single phase 30 amp service at 120 volts AC. So let's say I'm running my, I'm on the inverter, I fire up my air conditioner, and that works fine, but then we hit the microwave or turn on a hot water heater on electric or something. What would happen is that I would exceed those 30 amps, and it would blow one of these and shut down that service. So the workaround is to actually connect both of the outputs here in parallel before it goes into the transfer switch. Basically, you're combining both of these outputs single phase. From there, you can then split the output from that connection, that parallel connection, into the transfer switch. So the 2 outputs from the generator are these 2 black cables here, and then that goes into this splice back here. They're combined together, and then the outputs are also spliced together and go into the L1 black and the L2 red. So they're just the load should be spread evenly across both of those, and then the 2 neutrals coming from the generator are combined and go into the shared neutral. What that does is it allows me to then evenly distribute the load across both of these 30 amp circuits. Let's say when I'm running something now that runs, say, about 40 amps, then it would draw about 20 amps from one of these and 20 amps from the other one, and then it wouldn't exceed that 30 amps and blow a breaker. Now, everything that's part of this whole Victron set of components is wired and connected to the Cerbo GX, which has a touchscreen display, a control unit inside. I'll show you that in a sec. The Cerbo GX is actually connected via Wi-Fi to the internet, so I can manage and monitor the entire system remotely through the Victron mobile app. And I'll give you a snapshot of that. Super nice to have. But there are lots of different interface ports up here. The ones that I'm using are the VE Connect interfaces, and I see that I'm using 3 of these. There's like 3 of these here, and this is an HDMI port at the top which connects to the display unit, and there's a looks like a kind of a network connection here. It's like an RJ45, like a Ethernet type of connector there that connects to the Multiplus II inverter. So the inverter is actually connected through here. All the power coming in and out of the batteries is actually connected to a Victron Smart Shunt located right behind here, and the shunt itself is connected also to the Cerbo GX. So I can monitor all of the power consumption and measure the battery's state of charge through the smart shunt. All of the solar charge controllers are actually connected here as well. So everything comes into this unit. Now, something I learned about the all these different inputs to the Cerbo is that you may find that you'll run out of places to plug stuff in, because it has a limited number of USB connections, a limited number of VE Connect inputs. If you run out of inputs, physical inputs here on the device itself, different connections, what you can do is actually get just an inexpensive USB hub like this one I picked up on Amazon. Nothing fancy, just $10 or so. You can just plug in this little hub to the Cerbo, and this is just a 4-port hub, and that allows you to just connect more USB devices using the USB or VE Connect to USB adapter, and you can plug in more USB stuff. As long as you don't exceed that, I think it's 16 total inputs to the Cerbo. Now, I've got a couple friends that have a similar setup, so I was able to pick up some tips from them, Jared and Kevin. I appreciate all the help. But one of the cool things that we have set up is that we can monitor each other's battery and power systems remotely. We're sharing our configurations. And one of the things that we've done, that I've done because they did it, is to just connect an inexpensive GPS receiver to the Cerbo. And you just connect it to one of these ports. I have it on a USB port, so you can get them online at Amazon really cheap, and then connects via USB. It's just a standard one. And from there, you can look online through the VRM app or the VRM website, and you can actually see where your RV is or where they're at. So that's really kind of cool. Let's say you got your RV stolen or something, but you can always track where it is. The receiver itself is actually mounted outside. It's a little magnetic thing, and it sits right here by the door and just picks up the GPS lat and long, and I can plot that on a map. It's kind of difficult to really show what we've got connected here, just because it's just a bunch of wires and stuff. So let's go in and look at the display unit inside, and we can see some of the information a little bit more clearly, and the devices that are connected to the system. Now you can manage just about everything that you need to through this touch screen interface that's connected to the Cerbo GX. Let me show you some of the things that we do all the time. So this is the main screen that we tend to use here on this display when we're just monitoring things. I can quickly see at a glance what my battery state of charge is. I can see how much solar I have coming in, combining all of my solar charge controllers together, and my DC power load, my AC loads, my state of the inverter up here. Right now it's inverting, and this one that doesn't have anything on it right now is the AC input. So if my generator is running or whether I was connected to shore power, I'll see how much power is coming from that source. Right now there's nothing. So what I can do is swipe over here and see some other screens. Here's another good one, basically showing the same information, just kind of laid out a little different. This one has a couple of places where I can actually change the settings of the inverter on the fly, which is really nice. But what I can do is switch this to the menu mode. Right now it's on pages mode, but I want to go to double tap that, go to menu mode, and then now I can see all my devices here individually. The first one is the inverter, and I can expand that, and I can see all the settings, not all of them, most of the settings on the inverter, and what my current state of the inverter is, what it's doing. So it's good for diagnosing things or just seeing what's happening on the inverter side. The next 4 here, you see that I got 4 solar charge controllers plugged into the Cerbo, each doing its own thing independently, since they're all separate and handling one big panel each. I can see the first one, you know, pulling in 65 to, the sun's going down now, so it's not pulling in a lot, plus it's at full charge already. Yeah, and I can look at all that stuff for one and do the same with all those others. The next one below that is my, if you can't see that, is the shunt. So that's the smart shunt. At a glance I can see it's state of charge there, 99%. Current battery voltage 13.35. And it's currently pulling, what, 1.6 amps. Now if I go into the settings section here, I can do a lot of things. What I typically will do periodically is reset my Wi-Fi connection, because since we're using a mobile Wi-Fi connection, it might drop off if I take it with me or whatever. So sometimes I have to reset that. So under Wi-Fi here, you can see that Wi-Fi networks, it's currently connected to this one called T-Fi 2, but you know what that does is that allows me to connect the VRM portal to this device. So back on the VM settings, I can go here and basically connect my whole system to the Victron Victron remote management website, and then I can monitor everything remotely. But every once in a while there's a connection error here, so it can't connect to Wi-Fi or to the internet. And when you encounter that, you have to reset it. One of the settings that a friend reminded me about is this option here to reboot the device when there's no contact, and I have it set to 8 hours. So if your system's not connected to the internet and not communicating for up to 8 hours, what it'll do is it'll automatically reboot the Cerbo, and then when it comes back online, then that reboot will reconnect. So that's kind of a nice automated way to reset the connection. Now, one of my favorite features of the Multiplus is the power share feature. So what that allows me to do is to set a limit for how much energy that I want to pull from an AC power source. So that could be shore power, it could be your generator. I don't even use my 50 amp big fat power cord anymore. What I do is I'll just take a heavy gauge extension cord with an adapter, plug it to my shore power cord, and then I'll plug that into a pedestal, or maybe I'm at a friend's house mooch docking or something. I'm just interested in maybe recharging my batteries, and the Multiplus, it'll provide like 120 amp DC charge through the AC. That's achievable through just say a 15 amp AC service. So I could totally do that with just a regular household outlet, you know, a connection to that. So when I plug in somewhere, I'll just plug in an extension cord, and what I'll do is I'll go in here to the Multiplus and set that limit for my AC input to about 14 or 15 amps total. So it'll never pull more than that. If I'm running other things in the RV at that time, it'll pull that from my battery bank and go through the inverter to supply that energy. So that's really cool. So let me show you how you can adjust that through this touch display here. Now there's a couple ways to set the current limit here. I can certainly go through the settings screen, through the menu, and then go into the inverter device settings and change it here. Or I can do it, which is what we'll do now, go through the pages setup, and I'll move over, swipe over to this screen, which has some inverter controls here automatically. So I can just touch this as AC current limit, touch it, and then I can adjust that here. 40, let's go down to, whatever, 12.5 amps, hit accept, and then so it changed it to 12.5 amps. So what that's going to do is it's going to just limit the current that I can draw from an AC source to 12.5 amps. Now, one really cool way to use this power assist feature is to share power with your friends when you're out boondocking and off-grid. Let's just say our friend wanted to pull power and recharge his batteries from our system. We just run an extension cord over, plug into the AC outlet on the outside of the RV, and then his system would start charging. He would set his power assist cap to be, say, 15 amps, and then that would ensure that he's not pulling any more than 15 amps from our rig, which is enough to support his charging needs. But we would still be able to function because we're all connected through this Victron remote management system. We can see each other's system. So what they'll do is they say, okay, I'll unplug when you get to like 85% of your battery capacity, just so he doesn't draw me down too low. They had an electric car, and we had extra power, and they're able to plug in their electric car to our rig and kind of monitor how much energy they're pulling in to charge their car. So it's worked out really cool, and it's nice to be able to do that and have these functions in the Multiplus. Now, having the ability to remotely connect our system to the cloud, I guess you could say, through Victron's VRM system, I think it's Victron Remote Management System, is huge. I mean, we can look at our setup and make changes. Here's the VRM screen on the app. We can access this information anywhere in the world, and it basically gives us full access to be able to do things, to monitor the state of our batteries and whatever devices that we have connected here. And using that GPS receiver, you even can see where we all are on a map. They just released a separate VRM app as well, which adds a few little widgets that we could then put on the screen on our phone. And so it's got a real-time widget that shows the state of charge of the batteries and other things on our system here. So another really handy thing. It's free. All you need to do is set up a VRM account and create a login, and then you just connect the app to your account, and then you can see all of your stuff. And there's a web version also, so if you open your browser, go to the VRM site, you can see all of your information, as well as a ton of historical data, which I'll probably go through that in another video, but it's really cool to just see all of that information over time, and see what your maximum PV inputs have been. The Cerbo GX and the other GX module provides a lot of this communication and connectivity that's just a real step above everything else. So you might be wondering, what equipment and appliances and all this stuff can we actually run on our system? And the answer is we can run and power everything that we need to. And it's more an issue of managing that power and figuring out how long we want to actually run those high draw things so that we don't pull our battery bank down lower than it needs to be. If you're curious about the air conditioner, that's a big question. Can you run your AC? The question is yes, we could totally run the AC. In fact, our AC is a basement model. It sits below the bedroom, and it has 2 compressors in it. I don't even need a soft start to power up the heat pump / AC unit. So with that 810 amp hours of lithium batteries, it handles that initial surge without any trouble. But I won't run it when I don't have an ample amount of solar being generated. So, on a great day, so far what we've seen is we might be pulling in 1,400 or 1,500 watts of solar, and the heat pump itself, which cycles on and off to regulate your temperature, that might pull in between 13 and 1,600 watts, or that might draw like 13 to 1,600 watts of energy. So the solar can offset that considerably and not draw a lot from the battery bank. if I'm not pulling in enough solar, then when that heat pump or air conditioner is running, then yeah, it's going to draw that down pretty quick, probably about 10% or so each hour. What I have been able to do is on those nice days is actually run our absorption refrigerator, which, you know, switches between the AC or the propane mode. I can actually run that on AC power 24 hours a day, and it pulls probably about 25% of the battery. And you know, if I get that recharged the next day, then I'm good, and I can just kind of leave it on AC mode if I'm in a sunny area. So that's been great to minimize the amount of LP usage, and you know, keep as much propane as I can and make that last longer. When it's cloudy and I'm not pulling in enough solar and stuff like that, I'll be switching to LP mode and run that. You know, typically we'll have our water heater set to propane mode, and we'll just switch it on when we actually need hot water, and it stays pretty hot throughout the day. But you know, if I have an excess of solar coming in, I could totally switch the hot water heater to electric, and then, you know, heat up a tank of water. So that works pretty good. Outside of that, you know, everything else is great. We can run the microwave, no problem. We have a Keurig. We have an air fryer, you know, so we fry stuff. We have an induction plate. So we try to use as much AC power as we can during those peak hours when we're getting lots of sun, and you know, everything else pretty much just functions like a regular home. It's been pretty good. Just having this added capacity of battery storage, you know, the lithium batteries, and the cool functionality of the Multiplus II and the Cerbo GX and all that remote monitoring and communication. It's given us that sense of freedom to be able to just go wherever we want to go and not have to rely on any kind of outside sources of power. That extra capacity has relieved a lot of that worry that when it's raining or you have a couple of days where you're just not bringing in enough solar, that you have a little bit of a buffer there, and you don't have to worry about constantly monitoring your state of charge. One reason I put that display monitor down here is because I didn't feel I needed to have it out in the open and constantly be checking our battery level, because I know, you know, we have plenty, and it's not going to just automatically drop. So I've got plenty to work with. Now, before we wrap up, I want you to join me in thanking one of our long-term viewers of this channel. His name's Philip Smith, and he's the sponsor of this video. Now, Philip has just decided on his own, you know, without me asking or putting it out there, that he wants to help support the channel, and provides a small cash donation every month, which is very much appreciated. So I wanted to just call you out, Philip, and thank you personally. And I really appreciate all the support, and all the support from everyone who leaves a comment and provides feedback, and just appreciates what we're doing here. So I hope you enjoyed this video, got something helpful out of it, and you know, as always, the conversation will continue down in the comments section. So I will see you down there, and take care, and I'll see you in the next video as well.